Oh, Lisa's by far the one. I mean, positive Lisa over there. Oh, she's so. I mean, girl boss. She's the best. All this. It's a mirage, folks. It is a
It
mirage.
is, and I'm two-faced, and
Did
I
you hear how much on
own
the
it,
fence she
right?
was with those comments? I slightly agree and slightly disagree,
Oh
Byron.
my God.
So
Oh, that everybody will say, "Oh, he's a real hard ass," right? No,
there,
Lisa's the hard ass.
if you're not getting educated about current real estate market conditions, whether you're in finance, accounting, you're doing mortgage deals, you are in title or obviously real estate, more than ever, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole. I'm here with Byron Lazine and Lisa Chinatti, and we've got some movement here on rates this morning, and it actually happened yesterday. This news dropped towards the end of the day that the 10-year yield closed above 4.25%, and mortgage rates jumped up to the highest number since December of 2000. 23 years. This is the highest 30-year fix that we've seen. And as a result of that, obviously there's going to be some uncertainty in the market. Yet I find there's this optimism about what happens after Labor Day in the second half of the year. I hear this from people in the industry, and there's a lot of research out there, including Gary Keller, who came out at KW Mega Camp this past week, that said, hey, we're 1.8 million transactions short of where we were last year. There's going to be more people fighting for less transactions. People are talking about 8% rates. There's a lot to discuss here. Byron, I want to kick it to you. What is your view of this optimism in the market? What is your view of where rates go? We can get into the economics, but I want to talk to the knowledge brokers out there. What should they be doing right now, and what should their mindset be?
Well, on our call this morning, on our accountability call, this is why you're kicking it to me, because I was very animated about the optimism. So BAM and 1000 Watt just did an agent sentiment survey. It was the beginning of July. And so agents were asked about the next 6 months if they were optimistic about their business. And overwhelmingly, they're very optimistic. Lisa made a great point on the call. Yeah, out of 1,000 agents that were surveyed, a lot of them were from the BAM eco or the 1000 Watt eco, where they're going to be a higher, they're going to be more of a knowledge broker. Okay. Like everybody listening here. And so their optimism is based in the reality of how they're operating their business. And I get that. Okay. I get that a select 10%.
Here we go. I can already one changing.
The knowledge brokers I'm not worried about. What I'm worried about and makes me cringe is that there is this screaming from the mountaintops that you need to be optimistic about the business, because then everything will just work out if you have this blind optimism about where the market is heading. Why? Because it helps me sell my real estate product to you. Because it helps me recruit people if I'm happy-go-lucky and I don't present fear into the agent community. I'm not presenting fear. I'm being optimistic. I'm not being pessimistic, or I'm not presenting fear. I'm being realistic. I'm not, going pessimistic just because I want to. I'm looking at the data. The market has crashed. Prices haven't crashed, but to Gary Keller's point, your transactions have crashed and are crashing. Okay. Less people in the fourth quarter of 2023 are going to be able to afford to make a real estate transaction than there was in fourth quarter of 2022. That's just the truth. There's less opportunities out there. And if we're faced with 8%, by the way, Zillow said if we hit over 8% on the 30-year fix, I'm not saying that is going to happen. It's a possibility. It's more of a possibility now than what Mortgage Banker Association predicted us being at 5.9 by the end of fourth quarter. I think I would take the bet on 8 over 5.9. If that happens, they're talking about 3.3 million seasonally adjusted annualized transactions, not the 4 that we're sitting at. This is far, far from 5.8. And so I don't want to just go in there and be optimistic. Now, listen, I was trying to hedge against what I knew was going to happen in the fourth quarter of last year. I said, okay, I can see this. We're going to have a drop in transactions. We're going to have a significant decline. We had that. I went out and made a massive mistake with my business, and I over indexed on grabbing online leads. This was a financial mistake. It was an operational mistake. It was also, just kind of a good lesson on the reality of what happens in real estate. Is there's over 200 million. You're going to hear Tom talk about this. Well, Tom Toole, you're not going to hear about it, but me and Lisa will hear about it because we'll be in Dallas next week. You can jump in there last minute, code PRPMSS to the Tom Ferry Summit. But Tom's going to get up there and he's going to talk about this stat about 200 million online leads. You hear him talking about it online right now a little bit. He'll certainly talk about it in Dallas, and only 4 million transactions. So why in our market is it any different? I made the mistake of having the majority of the leads, and there's only going to be a certain amount of transactions. And so knowing what got me to this point in my career, knowing what's going to be critical going into 2024, I'm going to take that same level of investment. I'm not receding on my investment, but I'm going to put it in what I believe is going to be more actionable places, which is brand, where I can really break through on the less transactions. And so I'm preparing for what is to come. And that's my form of optimism. But all of this, people hate it when you bring up any of these negative numbers or negative facts, because they say you're trying to induce fear in the market, Byron. You're being too negative. Be positive. Be happy. Be positive, Pete. That's not going to pay the bills in December. I'm telling you right now.
I think it ties in, though. I think I agree with everything that you said. And my point this morning when we were kind of chatting is that I think that there's two different, maybe even three different camps of agents out there, right? I think that there's the part-time agents that are just never really, truly going to be impacted because they don't need the money to live off of. And that was always the interesting thing, even as the market started shifting. Those agents doing 1-2 deals a year, they're not dependent upon the income. It's not going to have any impact to them. I think the second camp is the one that filled out the 1,000-watt BAM survey, which is those that are operating at a higher level, those that are doing more than 10 units a year, those that are actually living off of the income that they generate, the full-time professional agents. And then the third camp is those that kind of fall somewhere in the middle. And I think, to kind of what we talked about this morning, I think that the second camp, the ones that filled out the survey, I think that there should be some positivity there. I think that for the folks that are operating their business in the right way, I think that there is still opportunity. And I think that there is some stuff to be optimistic about. I think that there are smaller transactions. I think that there is a big opportunity, like Gary Keller said, to take a bigger piece of the pie and increase market share using some of what you said through building brand and leveraging things that way. I think the area where folks should be worried are the ones that are not seeking out the knowledge, that are in that 5 to 10 unit year range where they depend upon the income. They need the income. I think their share is about to get smaller.
And Lisa, would you agree that, okay, so I'm with you, be positive. That's fine. Okay. That's one way to do it. Would you agree that the positivity and the optimism can increase when that knowledge broker is committed in an environment like this? And Gary Keller said this, I think, about a year ago. When you expand the hours you're going to put into this, this is where I lose people and people will get turned off on me. It's like, well, hey, you're like telling me I'm going to have to work hard in order to be optimistic. This market is not going to turn into a situation like a 2021.
Nope.
No.
It is going to be a slow grind, higher for longer than any of us want situation, which means we have to expand the output that we put into this.
Oh, without a doubt, 100%. And I think the interesting thing is, I think that those that are feeling optimistic, if you want my take on it, I think those that are feeling optimistic are the ones that are already doing that. So like, I look at myself, I'm optimistic. I think that I think Q4 is going to be hard. I think Q1 is going to challenge me in ways that it's never challenged me. I'm not necessarily scared or nervous. I'm going to start making some pivots within the company over the next couple of weeks, knowing.
Okay. And I agree, because I know what you're doing internally, how hard you're working. You've expanded in terms of your output and the energy and digging
100%.
deep,
Yeah.
right? But you're optimistic about your business. That's different than being optimistic about the overall market.
I would agree with you there. I don't disagree with what you're saying. But that being said, I do slightly disagree because I'm optimistic that my business is going to do well through the market. I'm optimistic that the market is going to correct in a way that's going to enable this industry as a whole to level up in professionalism. I think, as Gary Keller said, the days of the order takers are over, right? We all know that. And look, I'm seeing it even in my business. I've been like fucking living in shit over the past like 6 weeks, and looking at the skill level and looking at how we're having to make pivots internally and help our agents understand that the days of dropping everything and opening a door are over. But the days
Go ahead.
But the days of really understanding sales skills, true sales skills, what does it mean to follow up? What does it mean to take that seller? Prime example. What does it mean to take that seller who says to you, I'm going to try to sell this on my own, and not just say, peace, next lead, and actually continue to work that lead deep and hard. Sorry.
Lisa.
Lisa's mind is in the gutter while she's living in shit, is what I'm hearing.
Oh, Lisa's by far the one. I mean, positive Lisa over there. Oh, she's so, I mean, girl boss. She's the best. All this. It's a mirage, folks. It is a mirage.
It is, and I'm two-faced, and
Did you hear how much on the fence she was with those comments? I slightly agree and slightly disagree, Byron.
Oh my God.
So.
Everybody will say, "Oh, he's a real hard ass," right? No, Lisa's the hard ass.
If you want to be the knowledge broker in your marketplace, you need BAMX. It is a curated community of on-demand courses like the world-renowned Tom Toole, the best objection handler in the country, showing you how to handle seller and buyer objections on a consistent basis. Canva courses, how to design your own marketing so you can appeal to people on social media through email and look like a professional. And you get a private community with other like-minded folks like you that want to make their business better. Use the code Knowledge Brokers for 10% off. Get BAMX now. Do yourself a favor and go outwork and out-educate your competition. There's actually a principle here.
There's
a principle here for knowledge brokers and business leaders that Lisa's embodying right now. It's called the Stockdale paradox. If you guys have heard this from Good to Great, where it's a stoic acceptance of business realities coupled with an unwavering faith in eventual triumph based on what you're doing in your company. So that, to me, sums up the attitude in the 1,000-watt survey, because, to your point, we've all made moves. We've made pivots. We talk about this 3 times a week. This has been something that I've made some serious pivots. Byron, you have. Lisa, you have. When we've all adapted to our different businesses and where the break points are. And if you're not accepting the facts in the market to make these decisions, that's who's in trouble. The flip side is, like Gary Keller says, that those who do pivot, there's still going to be business out there. There's going to be less business. And let's be very clear. There's going to be less business. One could argue there's too many agents that are in the marketplace right now anyway, because they are order takers. We've had to let go of some order takers at our team that just decide that their solution is they want to get back on Zillow calls instead of actually making phone calls during the week. So this is that principle, the Stockdale paradox. That's what great leaders exhibit. That's what great business owners exhibit. And whether you're on a team, you're an individual agent, you're a team lead, whatever, you still own your own business. And that's the mindset that's going to win. So I agree with what Lisa's saying. There's a principle here. I'm not optimistic about the market. I'm optimistic about the conditions and how we can thrive in that market and deliver value to the consumer. That's the difference here. And I think that's what's summed up in that 1,000-watt survey, Byron.
Yeah, I agree. I think what we keep circling around, though, when we talk about optimism about the market, is through the the agent knowledge broker lens. And when I say the market is, I'm a little bit more pessimistic about the market, I'm taking a more holistic look, like how are consumers really feeling about this market? And because that is who we have to hear. That is who we need to really connect with at a deep, deep level to understand what they're going through. Listen, the people listening to this pod, you, Lisa, I mean, we should be optimistic because we're taking significant action every day. What used to be maybe an 8-hour day is a 12-hour day, and we're fine with it. But the consumer is still constrained to maybe a 2, 3, 4. I mean, lately it's been a 4% bump in pay. It's raising the family. It's wanting to be in a particular location, close to school. We did a report on BAM this week. I think it's 9 out of 10 teachers. I'll get the exact number. 9 out of 10 homes near schools are unaffordable for teachers. Okay. So, this is the reality of me not being, I can't run around like, some of these people that just want everything to be gumdrops and lollipops on social and say, be positive Pete about the market. It's just, there's a reality that this is a market crash. It's not a values crash. Values aren't going anywhere. 42% of homeowners own their house outright. 90% of them have a rate under 6%. They're locked into low expenses on their home. But for the buyers in this market right now, it is a crash on transaction. It's a crash on opportunity for them. There's certainly not a solution for supply coming around the corner. If there was, that would help inflation greatly. And that's the pain that we're going to be on the front lines.
And let's talk about some of the reasons why there may be this uncertainty for consumers. Byron, earlier you mentioned that mortgage bankers, they're predicting 5.9 by the end of the year. They're not the only ones.
Mortgage Banker Association and others.
Different agencies that have predicted this, whether it's the Mortgage Bankers Association, Morgan Stanley, Morningstar, right, Goldman Sachs, NAR, Realtor.com, Moody's, Fannie Mae. I mean, it's a long list of people. Now, the flip side is, and I was reading some
that have covered about 6% for some of them by the end of the year.
Next year, they're talking a similar range where it goes down into the 5s. The flip side is we saw what happened with the 10-year, and Lawrence Yun decided to get out of bed and make a comment now that this happened, but I thought it was pretty relevant, where he, this was actually just yesterday, that he mentioned the Federal Reserve's comment about another rate hike in September, along with the downgrade of the U.S. debt, have exerted that upward pressure on long-term borrowing rates. And that's where we saw the 10-year jump up. And if it continues to break past that, some people are saying it might go to 5% on the 10-year, which might cause mortgage rates to go to 8%. The flip side is that if that resistance line holds, and I'll send Bobby this chart here. This is the just the 10-year borrowing rate testing resistance line from NAR, that since 2008, there's been this resistance line right around that 4.25% number that could pull rates down closer to the 6% mark. So we're at a very critical juncture here, that if this goes one way, rates go one way, and all these people are wrong, which wouldn't be the first time. The flip side is if the 10-year retreats a little bit, we might see that 6% prediction come true. I'm curious where you guys think this is going to go. A lot of people tend to agree with him. Logan Mohtashami had a similar take on this yesterday at Housing Wire. This rate conversation now is getting a lot more serious than we thought.
Yeah, and here's the conundrum for real estate professionals. Rooting for a 30-year fix to drop sharply and significantly is also rooting for large waves of job loss across this country. So the stronger the economy, the longer we're going to have higher rates. And so you can't have it both ways. You can't have, like, Atlanta Fed just came out and said they have the U.S. GDP for quarter 3 on track to be 5.8% growth for quarter 3. That's bananas. Absurd. That's a huge number. But you have this great thriving, job market, very low unemployment. You have a surplus in jobs. You have a consumer who continues to spend month over month, who appears to be very strong. A lot of this because most current homeowners are locked into low fixed, costs on their homes. So they do have the money to go out there and enjoy. And so rooting for a sharp decline in 30-year fix so you squeeze out a couple more buyers in your market is basically rooting for a sharp recession. I don't think anybody should be rooting for that, is my point.
What's Lisa Chinatti rooting for?
Stability. I'm rooting for stability. And I think that's going to be hard to find. I'm kind of falling in the camp that we're going to see rates increase a bit, which is tricky. I was just running mortgage calculators, and understanding the payment difference, right? Because it comes down to affordability. I think the other side of it, though, is two-faced again. There's opportunity in the market for buyers, right? And it's just a function of understanding which buyers and sellers find opportunity in this kind of market, and being able to coach clients through understanding what those opportunities are. For those that are going to live in their homes full time, where they're making the emotional purchase, it's tough because affordability is definitely impacted, which is why I was just pulling this up. So if we look at what a $500,000 purchase with 20% down, when rates were at 6.25%, right? And the monthly payment on that for principal and interest was $24.62. We changed that mortgage rate to 8%, which isn't totally outside of the realm of possibility. And the principal and interest goes up to $29.35. That's a really big jump in affordability.
Yeah, to your point, I have a chart in front of me from Bloomberg. How much can you buy with a $2,500 monthly mortgage payment, assuming 20% down, average 30-year mortgage rate, $758,000 in just, call it 2021 to today, $443,000. Now,
Right.
We know that the house value hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's part of the problem. It's like the home values have actually gone up. That's where the pain is for these buyers.
100%. Again, that being said, though, there are some who are savvy who will make the decision, because what we all know, right, is when rates do come down, and I believe all three of us believe that rates will come back down. It's just a function of when. And for buyers that are a little bit more savvy, I do believe that values are going to increase as the rates come down and more buyers come back into the market. And for those that are willing and able to take advantage of it right now, I think that there's going to be a shift in wealth that kind of happens, whether it becomes on the investor side of things or just those individuals who are willing to maybe make a bit of a sacrifice for a smaller home that's not ideal for the short term in order to get into home ownership and continue to build wealth. Agree or disagree? Yeah. I don't care.
No, I agree that rates will eventually, they always do. There's these peaks and valleys. There's going to be a down. You led off by saying stability. Stability to me feels like 5%. Stability is not 2.75%, by the way.
No,
so that's
I agree. I think it's like
stability.
5.5.
I think 5.5, 5% in the fives. Yeah, I agree with that. And, one thing I can say for certain, that eventually I'm not a marry the house, but date the rate guy.
Shut up.
He came up on the hot sheet today. I'm like, no.
Please. Thank you.
Yeah,
you don't ever say that, right? You never, ever, ever would say that, because look at what's happened if you were telling people that in early 2022. Look at where the rates are today. They'd be coming at you with a machete. I don't know if I can say that word on YouTube, Bobby, so I can't just bleep it out. But
can't say machete on YouTube?
I don't know. You can't say anything on YouTube, so I would assume not. But you got to look forward. And what I can also say with certainty is these home values are going to go up in the future.
Yeah.
And that's when you start to get into a real conversation. I want people to understand that if rates are here for longer, it's going to bring more buyers in later when they do actually come down to Lisa's point. do you believe you're going to make more or less money over the next 10 years? Phil Jones types of questioning to get them comfortable with, okay, I don't care what my friends say about going out on an 8% loan right now. I'm going to be here for 10 years. In a 10-year period, home values always go up 40% or more. You can track that back. You can show them that data. And I'm going to be making more money. So this payment that I'm locking into right now is only going to be more affordable over the next 10 years. So why wouldn't I move forward? And those are the type of insights that buyers need to have to alleviate the fear and the pain they're going through.
Well, and fundamentally, when buying a home, it happens because of life events. We've been through this before. There's a reason people are doing it, and it's not because, hey, this is a killer investment. I mean, that can help for sure, and we saw that in the unicorn market in 2020 to 2022. It's like, oh wow, I can't believe I can get this much house for this low of a payment. It also got us into the situation we're in now. So look at that with the err on the side of caution, and that's where the knowledge brokers, they're asking the extra questions. You talked about Phil Jones questioning. And Lisa, you mentioned this, that you talk about really working a lead, right? Well, for sale by owners, for example, 72% of them list in 61 days or less. This is a documented statistic. Most agents, they're like, oh, I don't want to hire an agent. Okay, thanks. Click. They don't ask the further questions. Yep. And they don't even know the right question to ask in the first place. They don't study the scripts. They don't know the dialogues. Circle dialing's another one. Lisa, we talked about this on Monday, where you call around and you say, hey, Byron, my name's Tom. I'm a local agent in the area. I don't know if you saw your neighbor's home that sold up the street. We had 5 offers on it, meaning we got 4 buyers that want to move into your neighborhood. Who do you know that might be thinking about selling? I can't think of anybody. That's usually the answer you get. And agents are, hey, thanks anyway. Instead of, oh, totally appreciate you thinking about that. So tell me, how long have you lived in the neighborhood yourself? What do you like about it? Get people talking, and then you hit them with the follow-up question. And this is gold, old school prospecting questions. Hey, so Byron, if you ever did decide to sell in the future or make a move, where would you want to go to next? And asking that question, that reveals if there's any sort of future motivation. And we were talking about before the show, Ricky Caruth's been putting out some great content. He's talking about playing for a year, 2, 3 years down the line. Those questions get you those people. And if you're calling them once a quarter,
that's right,
literally, and putting them on a property drip and sending them a handwritten note or a personalized video, when they do get to that point, you're going to be the agent of choice. And that's where investing in branding and yourself is going to be way more important than buying more online leads.
Yeah, the more you're willing to engage in the long game, I would argue that the quicker your brand is going to build in the short term, and you're actually going to find some more of those short-term opportunities by being the knowledge broker of notice. People notice you when you have a lot of conversations. They don't notice you when you're an agent from your bedroom. It's hard to get noticed in your bedroom.
I had an interview this morning. You want to laugh? It was at 9 a.m. an interview. And it was on Zoom.
The guy was in the bedroom, or the girl was in the bedroom. Is this what happened?
In sweatpants.
Oh my God.
Like, at least move the camera up. Don't let me see what's below.
That they must have been on what's it called? Like you know when you're on unemployment and you're like required to apply for a job, but you really don't want one. Yeah. Like you want to get denied all the jobs so you can keep the unemployment. That must have been the situation. Why would you ever show up in sweatpants? Really, to anything?
I think she just didn't realize that that the camera angle was off, because it was like dressed, somewhat done, not. No, bad news bears.
Hey, sweatpants are like, people go out in public in sweatpants now. They feel good about it. So
I shout
out to them. They make me look better.
In gym clothes, so I can't comment too much on that.
Gym clothes are fine. That's fine. I'm talking like, the gray sweatpants from the 80s that got the like meatball stains on them.
That's very specific stain.
Meatballs. I mean,
a lot of meatballs in the Northeast.
They are delicious, but put some pants on, for Christ's sake.
So many comments I'm holding back right now.
Yeah.
So many comments.
Lisa's still got the deep and hard thoughts running through her brain there.
The most immature mind in real estate, Lisa Chinatti, ladies and gentlemen.
And I get to spend a whole bunch of time with her next week in Dallas. So we're going to be coming back on Friday, fresh off of Dallas, and we'll have a lot of insights. Tom, how are we wrapping this one up?
I think that the last thing to talk about here, you guys mentioned buying in market conditions like this, right? Well, Warren Buffett said this a long time ago, and he made a big move. I want to get your take on this, that you want to buy when people aren't buying. You don't want to be buying when everyone's buying, which in general, that will agree to long-term wealth. And what Warren Buffett went out and did is that he made a pretty big investment himself. On Monday, Berkshire Hathaway disclosed to the SEC that it made investments in 3 major U.S. home builders, D.R. Horton, Lennar, and NVR. And in total, they bought just under 6 million shares of D.R. Horton, 152,000 shares of Lennar, and 11,000, shares of NVR, worth about $800 million. And they really over-indexed on D.R. Horton. I find this to be fascinating because what's everyone complaining about right now? Supply. And he's, instead of buying the houses, which could be another smart move for a lot of people at a lower scale, he's buying the people that build the houses. And he really over-indexed on a large builder there. To me, that demonstrates what you just talked about, or what we just talked about here, where if you're giving people the right advice, the folks that have an eye on the long-term market, they're going to do pretty well. And we know that we've got a housing shortage right now. Is that kind of information, is that helpful to any of the knowledge brokers out there? How can you explain that to consumers and use it as a leverage point if maybe they're on the fence?
I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I don't want to be, super pessimistic here again. Unless you want me to.
Go.
All right. I have a lot of thoughts about this. So Buffett buys Lennar, D.R. Horton, NVR. Most of his, it's 800, what was it? 800 billion or 800 million? Probably 800 million, right? We can look that number. I think it was 800 billion.
800 million. Yeah, that's the number.
There. 800 million. Over 700 million into it was D.R. Horton. Okay. But he buys these 3 national home builders at a time when their stock is not at like year-to-date highs. They're at just under their all-time highs, which they just recently hit. They've come down a little bit off of their all-time highs. All 3 builders, national builders, are at their all-time highs, essentially. This tells me that Warren doesn't believe that there is a short-term solution to inventory coming. That's what that tells me. He's a very smart guy.
I agree with this.
Why would he buy these 3? Why would he push 800 million into these 3 companies when they're at all-time high? When you saw builder sentiment just went down this week and it's now at 50-50, and you see that there's still volatility in construction materials. There's still all this stuff going on. You've got huge insurance concerns in places like Florida and California that are impacting the new home buyer. Yet he goes and makes a big bet. He doesn't believe that there's any solution to the inventory crisis that's headed our way. The other reason why it might be these 3 is they have the least. I can put this chart up. I did more digging. My initial thought was that, okay, he doesn't believe inventory is coming, but why these 3? You got Toll Brothers, you got Pulte, you got other ones. These 3 in particular, Lennar, D.R. Horton, and NVR, have the least exposure, okay, in comparison to some of these other companies with the share of total residential lots owned outright. Okay, so he's also hedging his bet if the market does turn on builders for a bad way. Remember what happened in 2008 when the market turned on builders? They were all holding the bag on too much land. Mm-hmm. And they don't have as much exposure. And so we could put that chart up as well from John Burns Research and Consulting. Lisa, you have any thoughts about it?
No, I think you summed it up pretty well.
I think it reiterates that.
I get more negativity. I'm sorry, but knowledge brokers should be informed on this, and they should be able to articulate that. And so that to me is actually a useful tool when talking to a buyer who wants to wait for all this inventory to come.
That's exactly what I would suggest.
Use the Warren Buffett example. Yeah, use the Warren Buffett example of why another data point of why it seems certain there's not more inventory to come save the day. And so let's become a homeowner or make that move now, knowing that time is the best cure and best hedge against any real estate worries. Being a holder for longer term.
Byron's done ranting. That's what we
All
got
right.
this week, guys. And I think this is.
They hate it. In the comments, let me know how much you hate the rants.
I don't look at it as a rant, as a dose of reality, because there are I've sat in meetings at our brokerage before. I remember this vividly. This guy is now out of the business, by the way, and it's like 2008 or 2009, one of the two. And he's like, "Oh, the market's great. I don't know what you're talking about." And we had these brokerages meetings. It's a little bit of an antiquated thing. And I said to him, "Where do you get the data on that?" "Oh, it's just great. It's great. It's great." It's like, well, is it a great time to buy and sell right now, pal? Or like, what are we talking about here? And it just kept saying, "It's great. It's great." And I remember, and literally in 6 months, this guy was out of the business, because there's going to be people that transact despite these conditions or because of these conditions. But if you're not getting real, people are so sick and tired of getting BS'd by real estate agents. And it's gotten to a point where, like, marry the house, date the rate. That's a great example. That's a BS hook. I mean, you mentioned something, Byron, on the hot sheet, like thinking of buying or selling. Like, well, I mean, these questions people ask are just ridiculous. So when you can present this data and then say, okay, so now knowing all this data, what's that mean for your situation? And talk to the consumer about what they want to do. That's where people can take market share, to Gary Keller's point. So it may be a little rough or a little harsh.
What does this look like? What does this look like for you and your family is maybe one of the all-time things we can ask over and over and over again to gain insights.
Love it.
Yep.
And what it looks like for me and Lisa is spending a lot of time next week together in Dallas, but not you, Tom Toole.
I'm accepting the brutal facts in my business and working in the business. So you could say whatever you want, but I'm backing it up here.
That was a shot at us,
it's
Lisa.
not a shot at me.
Dude,
you guys know the situation. Like, I mean, it is what it is. It's no shot at you at all.
Whatever.
It's a shot at myself for
not
pivoting fast enough and making better decisions. How about that?
Whatever. All right, I gotta go. I gotta go train my team on listings.
Let's go. Let's go get some listings. Appreciate all the knowledge brokers. See you next week.